Everybody, today I want to talk to you a little bit about pricing. One of the things that people ask me all the time is, how do I price? How do I know what to charge? And in government contracts and in commercial contracts as well, the one of the key, or key number one, or point number one, is you've got to know how to put a value to your services. You've got to be able to quantify that value. Quantification is the only way that you are going to convince someone that your price matches what it is that you're going to provide. For example, someone says, I'm really good at what I do. I'm a consultant. I've been doing this for 20 years. Okay, you've been doing it for 20 years, but what did you deliver in 20 years? And what makes it worth your price compared to someone who's been doing it just as long, or whatever your value or performance metric is? So you should have your pricing put together so when you can show your story, show your value of why your price is what it is. To quantify your value, what you're going to do is you're going to take the amount of money that you earned, or the amount of money that you generated for someone else, or the amount that you were responsible for. Okay? So in whatever capacity, whether it's, as a salesperson, as a business owner, or maybe you had a job and you also helped someone make money, or got some referrals. You take that amount of money and you divide it by the period of time that it took for you to generate it. So if you were responsible for making a company, $100,000, and you did it in 2 months, okay, well, you take 2 months worth of time and divide it by 2,000 or 10,000 or whatever that number is, and that is the value. Just like with a house, if you buy a house, the number, what you paid for it, is $125,000. That is the value of that house, $125,000. However, back in 2008, someone would only be willing to pay $50,000 for that house. What does that mean? It means that's what it's worth. Better known as what someone is willing to pay for it and what the market will bear. So that's why you have to know the difference. If you don't know what your value is, you don't know how good or bad what someone is worth, what you are worth to someone else, and when you can walk away from the deal, because sometimes it is. If you are in digital marketing, or if you're a social media person, you know how you quantify your value? You quantify your value by saying that you were responsible for growing X amount of leads over a period of time, or you were able to generate X amount of dollars in sales. I know in the digital world, it's really not about, how many sales they generated. So make sure that when you're quantifying your time, you do it based on your performance metric. For example, my performance metric is the number of proposals that I get to the table. Not necessarily how many are awarded. You know why? Because a great proposal will get you to the table, but if you don't know how to price, or you don't know how to negotiate, you will not walk away with that deal. So I measure my performance based on the number of contracts or proposals that get to the table. And so the same thing with you, if you're in digital, if you're in marketing, or if you're any kind of consultant. Why should someone pay you $225 an hour? Did you just pull that number out of the air? Is it a number that you heard someone else? Is it a number that they paid the last person? If you don't know how a person came up with the number, then, as TD Jakes say, do the math. Do the math. Because what it costs for them to deliver that service may be a lot more or a lot less based on what they've got going on. They might own their building. You don't. You still got to charge for that. So start with knowing how to quantify. And when people are selling you something, you ask them, why are you charging me this? And how did you arrive at that number? Some people tell you, oh, that's just too much information. Here's the price. That's fine. But if you don't do it, I guarantee you that people are going to ask you to reduce your price. Have you noticed that some people ask you to reduce your price all the time? Or can you do it for this? Can you do it for that? That is a person who doesn't have enough information to be able to determine whether or not what you're asking them to pay and what they're getting in advance for it is what is what they're getting in exchange for is worth it to them. Okay, so that's just principle number one. I've got 10 principles that I talk about in terms of how to price and how to win, and sometimes that's not the same thing. Sometimes pricing competitively and sometimes pricing to win are two different things. Because if you're trying to beat the other guy, not knowing what his costs are, and you win that bid, and after you look at your costs, you realize that you're losing money, that's pricing to win, but that's not being competitive. So be on the lookout for a couple more videos when I'm going to be talking about, how to do the other components. Today we talked about how to quantify your value and how to determine your worth. And determining your worth is really just about determining what someone is willing to pay for it. But remember, your worth and your value can coincide if you do a good job of pointing out that your value and your worth are the same, or should be. In my case, it's not possible, because I generated $356 million in contract awards and $12.2 billion in contract negotiations. You divide that by 5 years and it's what, $30, $40, $50,000 an hour? Nobody's going to pay that. I don't care how good I am. But now they understand the value that they're getting for what the worth that I'm getting, that they're willing to pay. So if my value is $50,000 an hour and they pay me $225 an hour, then they clearly immediately see, no, they're not going to ask me to reduce my price, because you know what? I've drawn a line. You need to do that too. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend. I'll see you soon.